Yes, yes, greetings to everyone. My name is Kwame Gonza, as you can see. Um, this program, we were supposed to have it last week uh, to drop our analysis, our commentary on the recent provocation that the United States carried out uh, in China. In this provocation, they they went, the Speaker of Congress, or who's like the Speaker of Parliament of the United States, went to China, and China considers Taiwan. So I said she went to China because she went and visited China. I mean, she visited Taiwan, and Taiwan is considered, according to agreements of 1979 and many agreements which were signed by the same United States. Taiwan is considered a great part of China. Okay, so let me just break it down for you how it is supposed to go. When a head of state or an important person in any country wants to visit, like a speaker of parliament, they are supposed to notify the authorities in that country. And in this case, if you want to send a minister from one country to another, you are supposed to notify that country about this visit prior, to the visit. But this is not what happened with Nancy Pelosi. Since Taiwan is considered a great part of, is a territorial part of China, they were supposed to notify China. But because they have been fanning the flame of division in China, because of the fear of the rise of China's power, the rise of China as a great power, then they have been fanning this division so that Taiwan can become, an independent state. Taiwan can become an independent country by itself, even though Taiwan currently is not recognized as an independent country by majority of the United Nations countries in which are registered with the United Nations, or the majority of the world. They don't recognize Taiwan as an independent state. They recognize it as part of China as a state. So Nancy Pelosi, for her to visit Taiwan, she had to seek permission from China, because the United States itself signed contracts. I mean, it signed agreements together with China and agreed that Taiwan is a part of China. So, but how does this affect the rest of the world? Because as an African, I'm interested in how this affects me and how it affects our continent and our people as Africans. But let us go back to understand why the visit. This visit, it follows the consistent provocations that have been going on for a long time, especially after the United States was chased from Afghanistan. So they withdrew from Afghanistan after the defeat there. But also, one of the reasons why the United States withdrew from Afghanistan is because it thinks that now the major threat is China, the major threat to its existence, because they have at one point called Russia and China as an existential threat to their existence as the United States. And what is this allegation that China and Russia is an existential threat? If you look at it critically, they are not an existential threat, but rather they are a threat to Western imperialism. And when I'm talking about Western imperialism, I include the United States, all Europe, Canada, Australia. European imperialism. This is what they see, that it is a threat. Now, in this European imperialism, what is the purpose of European imperialism? Like what Nkrumah said in his work, Neo-Colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. He said that, and even Africa must unite, when he was writing, he pointed out that neo-colonialism is coming back. Colonialism is coming back to achieve what it achieved through slavery. Okay, imperialism is coming back to achieve what it achieved through slavery and colonialism in a different guise. And so Nkrumah said that it is only, so he was warning his contemporaries, he was warning the presidents of the independent African states at that time, in 1963, 1958, and all those periods in the 60s. And he was warning them and saying that imperialism is coming back if we don't unify. We have to unify. And he said that imperialism, changes only in form, but the substance is the same. What does he mean by substance? Now, by substance, Nkrumah means that the reason why imperialism came here is because of our markets and raw materials, and that is not going to change. But how they achieve that objective of stealing these resources is what changes. That's the form, is only the form, but the substance, the core substance is the same. So they see Russia, China as a threat to this exploitation of the global south, especially, as you know, that they have been exploiting Latin America, so-called Latin America or South America, which the United States calls its backyard. It calls its backyard. These are supposed to be, they are supposed to be independent states, sovereign states, but they don't respect that. Okay, so when it comes to their imperialism, they do not respect that. That is why you see that they are disrespecting even the agreements which they made with China in 1979, and they are going on to prop up Taiwan, a small island which is part of China, and prop it up so that it can separate from China. So the purpose is to weaken China. But why do they want to weaken China? They want to weaken China and Russia because they see them as the only threat to their objective of continued domination and exploitation of the resources of the weak nations, the resources in the Congo. You have heard Blinken talking about Wagner in his, a visit when he was visiting South Africa, when he was visiting Rwanda, and mind you, in all these countries, he was resisted. If you look at the speeches which were given by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Rwanda during the press conference between him and Anthony Blinken, who is the Minister of Defense, who is Secretary of State, who's like the Minister of Defense for the United States. I mean, who's like the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the United States. So the Secretary of State is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the United States. So Blinken and the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Rwanda, they had a press conference, and this conference was, this press conference was really rough. There was a lot of tension in the room, and he was resisted. Their advances are being resisted everywhere they're going. The same thing which happened in South Africa, that Blinken was told straight away, and this is telling to the United States, of course. When you tell him, you are telling to the United States. You are talking to the United States. He was told straight away that Africa is not going to be coerced, is not going to be intimidated. We know that you guys are here for the resources. You are here to exploit Africa's resources. And this woman who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs for South Africa, Pando, Madame Pando, she really made a very good case for Africa, and she defended Africa entirely. But people like these hypocrites, imperialists, they don't want to listen to the truth, and they don't want even to talk about it, because when she mentioned the idea of that these nations, these imperialist nations like Europe and the United States are in Africa because of Africa's resources, Blinken never mentioned anything about that. He just kept quiet. And then he kept mentioning democracy. He kept mentioning human rights. We are fostering democracy. And these are lies. Okay, so these are lies. This is what I want us as African people to come to the understanding that these people are not about democracy. You have seen the destruction which they have done in Afghanistan. You have seen the destruction which they have done in Iraq. You have seen the destruction which they did in the 1960s in Vietnam, in Korea. So these people are not about democracy. You are seeing the destruction which they are doing in Ukraine. That democracy is supposed to be about negotiations, dialogue. Okay, it's supposed to be a contest of ideas. It is not supposed to be about showing who has the biggest weapons, who has the most powerful weapons. And so the issue in Ukraine, which the foreign minister Pando, Madame Pando of South Africa, mentioned that the issue of Ukraine should be dialogue, and we have insisted on this for a very long time, even before the war broke out. They insisted, Africa insisted that this should be stopped immediately by the United States and its NATO allies stopping to move. They should not move towards Russia in on the in the eastern part of Russia, and they should stop the idea of recruiting Ukraine into NATO. They never listened to this, and they went ahead. So this is the hypocrisy which we are talking about. And also she spoke about the double standards of the United States, which it is throwing around, that the people in Palestine are being killed by Israel, is invading them, is apartheid that is going on in Palestine, whereby the people in Palestine are suffering and are being murdered. Okay, is a massacre that is going on over there that Israel is doing. And they are not talking about that. They are talking about Ukraine, and they are coming to Africa, running around Africa to spread hypocrisy, to spread lies, you see, and blocking RT News so that we don't get to know what RT News is, because they have this DSTV, which DSTV I would encourage all other Africans to unsubscribe from it, because this is a neo-colonial tool, okay, which is out there to spread the propaganda majorly against Africa and the weak people of the world, and exploit them. So we see that Pelosi even flew on a United States military aircraft, yet they have been alleging that she flew on her own privately. She flew on her own as a speaker of Congress, of Parliament of the United States. You see, so this is not allowed. It should not be allowed in the normal diplomatic way of things, that she should go and visit without permission from China as the authority on the territory of Taiwan. And this sparked outrage in Beijing, in China, the government in China, that it started carrying out military drills as if it is in preparation of taking Taiwan by force, because China has insisted that it wants to unify Taiwan peacefully without fighting. And these guys, the imperialists, are arguing that Taiwan should not give in to reunification. Mind you, China has been able to unify ever since 1949, 1912, when the Opium Wars led to the dismemberment of China by these imperialistic powers. And this is where I see that China is in a position which is very, very similar to Africa, actually, because China also was colonized by these powers, but these colonial powers, these exploiters from Europe, okay, and even the United States on the later part jumped in. German, Portugal, Britain, all these guys, they came, France, they came in to colonize China, but China was able to fight through. Even though it was dismembered, Macau was removed, which was colonized by the Portuguese, and then we have Hong Kong, which was given to the British. But China has been able to bring back all these territories peacefully. Macau was reunified with China, Tibet, where we have some, small groups which want to also to, they want to secede from China, but China has resisted. The central government in China has resisted. And then Hong Kong was, as recent as I think 2007, was reunified after 99 years. They were very patient and they reunified all these territories peacefully. So what China has argued is that they want to reunify, China wants to reunify Taiwan peacefully without fighting. But it has said that if the neo-colonialists, these colonialist exploiters and causers of chaos, continue to push China, that they want to push Taiwanese independence as an independent state and separate it from China, then China will not hesitate but use force and take over this territory by force. And so this is what China has been demonstrating. China has been demonstrating that it will take over this territory by force if these people are adamant and they continue to fan the flames of division in the South China Sea and divide countries, because divide and rule, that is how they survive. And this is what Nkrumah also was seeing in 1960s and 1950s and 1960s, that if we allow the division of our continent and the continued existence of these small territories, 55 of them, then we are opening doors, all the existence of regional bodies like East African Community, COMESA, ECOWAS, SADC, Maghreb, Arab Maghreb, all these. That means we allow further exploitation of our continent. So this is what Nkrumah was saying, that we need doors, we are leaving doors. By concentrating on these regional groupings, we are leaving the doors open, we are leaving windows open where neo-colonialists can pass in and manipulate the people, because that is how they survive. You are seeing what happened with Libya, that they destroyed the country, which was a very big economy on the part of Africa, that it supported African people who are from sub-Saharan Africa, who are majorly looking for jobs, and they would not even go to Europe. Many of them, they would stop in Libya and be able to find work there, because the economy was very big. These guys came and destroyed it, and now the country is in absolute chaos. So what are the implications of this visit for Africa? Number one, what we can learn from this as Africans, as I've always said, is that when Africa is rising up, as we have seen today, Africa is around $3 trillion in GDP. As we are rising up as Africans, we are bound to face the same challenges. Okay, if we do not strengthen ourselves as Africans, as a single state, as on the ideas of what Nkrumah envisioned, we are supposed to strengthen ourselves as a state, as a political state, as Africans. We're supposed to strengthen ourselves as a political state so that we can plug the gaps where these neo-colonialists may pass and jump inside it to manipulate our country, our state, our African state, if it is built. So we are not supposed actually to be doing Africa Continental Free Trade Area, okay, before we have built a political state. So these were the ideas of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and all the other great people like Chika Anta Diop. Okay, our continent should be built on the ideas of our great people, Walter Rodney, okay, Kwame Nkrumah, all these guys, and not the ideas of Blinken, Obama, George Bush, and all these groups, Cameroon, who don't know anything about Africa, or they don't care about our continent. And it is unfortunate that some of the leaders on the continent, they have taken people like Tony Blair to be an advisor on economics in Tanzania. So it is unfortunate. So our continent is supposed to be built and reconstructed on the ideas of our forefathers, because these are the people who cared about our continent. And so our continent has run into numerous problems, in many problems, because the ideas and philosophies of our forefathers have not been implemented. They have not been heeded. Okay, they have not heed the ideas of our forefathers and where they say that our continent should go, where they envisioned that Africa should go. Our people, the so-called leaders, have not heed to these ideas. Instead, some of them have run around to try to craft their own thinking, and then others just to implement outright ideas from the neo-colonial camp. And that is what has happened. So it is on one side very unfortunate. So, but there is some leaders definitely who have tried to implement the ideas of our forefathers, and one of them, I think, you can talk of people like Abiy, Prime Minister Abiy, to a certain level. I think Kagame also tries here and there, and a very few leaders like Muammar Gaddafi. These are the very few. But when you look around the continent, it's very unfortunate that people are doing things that are far removed from the ideas of our forefathers and what they want. It is not surprising that the continent now is in the way it is. So, number one, when Africa is rising as it is, and it has been spoken about for a very long time, even President Putin said it recently, about a few weeks ago, in a press briefing, and said that Africa will get up, it will realize its worth, and it will not sleep forever. And so that is a big market over there, 1.4. So everyone is paying attention to what is happening on the African continent. But amidst the rising, that is number one, which I say that we have to learn from, from this, what is happening in South China Sea and the provocations of China and provocations of Russia, is that when we are rising up as Africans and our economy has reached, like, let me say, $10 trillion, because right now we are around $3 trillion. And God willing, if we unify and our economy starts advancing rapidly, 10 trillion, 15 trillion, 20 trillion, which is very possible, because now the time for rebuilding nations has reduced. Where nations took 600 years in Europe, the United States cut that time and took around 300, 250 to 300 years, and China reduced that even to 50 years. You can see nations like Singapore in less than 30 years have been built. India is doing its thing over there. So the Asian tigers, Taiwan, and all those, in less than a period of 30 years. So it is possible now that if we have unified Africa, neglecting all the other things which the proponents or who are the people who are against African unity have been alleging that we can't unite people like Museveni, who is a very confused fellow. On one side, he's talking about Pan-Africanism. On the other side, he's saying that we cannot unify, and he even stood up against, against Muammar Gaddafi, and led to his overthrow by gossiping about him. So, what we are seeing is that the continent can unify. So, God willing, if we unify and we start growing rapidly, ignoring all those naysayers who are against African unity, and we grow 10 trillion, we grow 15 trillion, and we approach 20 trillion, we are bound to face the same problems which China is facing, or the same problems which Russia is facing. Because once we grow, definitely we have to build massive infrastructure. We have to build massive defense infrastructure also, okay, for us to protect ourselves from Europe. Because Europe, whenever it is in chaos, it runs to Africa and the global south to exploit, to look for land. When it is overflowing, its population is overflowing, it runs to the global south and weak nations for rescue. How does it run there? It runs there to exploit. And it's the same thing which we are seeing happening today, that the United States economy, if you look at the economic data, the first half, the United States economy declined. Instead of growing, it did not grow. What they call in economics contracting. It contracted by 1.6%. So it reduced by 1.6%. And for the last 10 years, mostly the United States has either been stagnant or it has been declining economically. So in the first half between January and March, the United States as an economy contracted or declined by 1.6%. So that means that the GDP reduced instead of growing. It reduced by 1.6%. In the second half, it contracted again in the second half. And mind you, the economy is open. There is no, there is no anything you can say that there is a lockdown which is affecting the economy. But it's because the economy there's a lot of incompetence among the leaders in that country. So you find that the economy contracted in the second half again between April and June. It contracted again by 0.9%. It reduced again by 0.9%. On the other hand, we have China. In the first half, it grew by more than, I think, 4.6 or 4.8, 4.86 or 4.8 or 4.3 to 4.9 around there percent. China has continued to grow, and then it had a strong lockdown between April and June in the second half, but China still continued to grow, and it grew by, I think, around 0.9%. That's in the second half. It has, even amidst no economic activity, no strong economic activity and lockdowns, China continued to grow. So China has continued to grow. So this is a threat. So you can be guaranteed that if Africa also starts developing and growing rapidly to this extent, which growth has already become a threat to the United States. If you look at what is happening in Ethiopia, the attack on Ethiopia has been because Ethiopia has been growing rapidly. That is why you see that the United States has been focused on Ethiopia to try to divide it, to break it apart. Because these big nations, when they grow, then they become a threat to the interests of the United States. Ethiopia is in the Horn of Africa, where there is the Suez Canal around there, and then we have on that line the route to Asia, where they transport goods from, and so the United States doesn't want a strong nation around this area. Okay, they don't want a strong nation around this area, and Ethiopia has been growing as the fastest growing economy. Before 2020, the coronavirus, Ethiopia was the fastest growing economy in Africa, growing by figures of 8 to 10%. Okay, so industrialization, and they picked some ideas from China. They had a lot of industry from China, and as you know, Ethiopia is just very close, to China across. So China thought it's important to put some of its industries there, and Ethiopia welcomed it, and this had led to a lot of growth. So the United States doesn't like this. So this is one of the examples which I'm trying to show you that Africa will face the same problems which China is facing, or Russia is facing, once Africa unifies and starts growing. But it has, on the other hand, already started facing these problems, whereby the United States has already started provoking, Africa in the form of provoking Ethiopia and trying to divide Ethiopia and overthrow the government in Ethiopia so that it can mutilate Ethiopia into Tigray and then Ethiopia, to try to divide. And that is why the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Ethiopia has fought against. So that is one of the problems that Africa is bound to face. Africa is bound to face that as a problem, as it is becoming stronger, is becoming prosperous, the same way China is facing it. So there will be attempts by these neo-colonial powers to continue to divide Africa and push different Africans against themselves, like what we are seeing between Congo, pitting Congo against Rwanda. You get the point. I know Rwanda may have also its problems and paranoia. Recently, Blinken has said that he has warned Rwanda against supporting rebels in the Congo. But that issue of the Congo, which I will come with another analysis and video on, is a more complicated issue, because Rwanda has had historically big problems like the genocide, and it cannot allow another group to come into the country to cause another genocide. But that is something which we are going to discuss further in another video, like I said, because the war in the Congo is a long war that started in 1960s, before even Rwanda consolidated itself as a state. And then the domination of the Congo as a major supplier of resources, technological resources which are responsible for technology, copper and all types of resources, tantalum and all that, cobalt today for electric cars. Congo was dominated starting about 300 years ago, okay, by Britain, by Belgium. And so that domination is still there. So this blaming Rwanda is just a scapegoat. They are using Rwanda as a scapegoat so that the Africans don't point a finger to the people who have historically exploited Africa, who have caused the chaos on the African continent. One, the killing of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba in 1960s. It was not Rwanda which killed the Prime Minister. It was Britain, it was Belgium, it was the United States. and the imperialists, all of them working together, who killed the prime minister and plunged that country into chaos. So it is not Rwanda. So I would not even see any sense in Africans, people like Tshisekedi and President Paul Kagame and Museveni and Uhuru Kenyatta, or any president who's coming up in Kenya, to start fighting against each other. They are supposed to sit down and understand what the problem is. These military groups were created by imperialists to aid in the exploitation of resources in the Congo. So it would be premature and it would be ignorant to blame Rwanda as the cause of the chaos in the Congo. This chaos has been there for centuries of years, but people like Blinken or people like the United States and all the other imperialists, the Europeans, whatever, they do not want to talk about the fundamental problems. They just want to be talking about the petty issues. Okay, so in this video I've touched a lot of things, but you can be sure that it has implications. All these things have implications because we are part of the global world, and it is important for us as Africans to pay attention to what is going on in the world. So the South China Sea, let me come back to it, which I said that Africa is bound to face the same problems as we develop if we do not strengthen ourselves at the formation stage, at the fundamental stage, like how China did and strengthened itself politically and unified itself in 1949 under President Mao Zedong. That was a great achievement. They strengthened themselves at the start, and then when they went outside there to start dealing with the world, they were very strong already. So I see that is a problem which we will also face as we are growing economically. We will face provocations. We will face continued desire by the West to divide our continent and turn ourselves against each other so that we can be fighting, so that they can continue to rob us as the economies are declining. They would want places where to find raw materials for them to survive, like what they're doing today. Europe, France is rushing when they see the prime minister or the foreign minister of Russia coming into Africa. Then France rushes. You see this boy Macron rushing to Africa to try to also convince people in Cameroon, but he didn't do anything there. He was just showing off, that he is also around, maybe to stop Lavrov from going to places like Cameroon, Benin, and stuff like that. So Africa is bound to face these problems of continued, divide and conquer tactics. They will try to divide the south of the continent and start calling it Sub-Saharan Africa, as they have been. When I was watching the interview, the press conference with with the South African Foreign Minister, Mrs. Pandor, I said that I think Mrs. Pandor should have corrected this guy Blinken and told him that there's no such thing as Sub-Saharan Africa. What you are characterizing Africa, we reject it. We reject it as Africans. Africa is one. There's no Middle East in Africa. There's no Sub-Saharan Africa. We know only one Africa, and that is the position in which you should be speaking from, because we don't want that European characterization of our continent. We are Africans from the north, whether you're talking about Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, all these countries are African. So we do not want your divisions and your divide and conquer tactics. Please don't mention those things from here. We do not agree. We don't agree with that kind of characterization. And people like Uhuru have said these things to Obama before and told him that we do not agree that we should concentrate our resources on fighting social issues when we have fundamental issues that have not been solved. You are telling us we should be talking about people's sexuality when we have people who are hungry, they have not eaten, we have problems of infrastructure. So he told him that this doesn't make sense. To us, it doesn't make sense. We want to solve fundamental issues first before we can, be talking about petty issues. So I think that the foreign minister, Madame Pandor of South Africa, should have, spoken in that kind of spirit. So Africa is bound to continue to face that kind of provocation, divide and conquer tactics from the West as we grow. If we don't strengthen ourselves as a strong African state, as a strong African state. So we have to learn from what is happening in the South China Sea, that China is strong. Now it can be able to put up a fight and defend itself. Number two, we need to understand that we have, as Africans, to have allies, strong allies across the globe, and we need to continually renew these relationships. Historically, those allies, strategic, let me call it, what it's supposed to be, strategic allies who are supposed to help us to fight off our historical enemies. Historically, we all know our enemies on this African continent, who have continually sought to dominate the African people through slavery, through colonialism, and now neo-colonialism. We know these guys. So we need to have strategic relationships with the rest of the world in order for us to be fighting. You had the non-aligned movement in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, which Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was very instrumental, in being part of the people that, formed this organization, the non-aligned movement. So this was strategic relationships being created. And so we have to understand that we are supposed to have these relationships as Africans. So number one, we need to understand that we will be provoked, and we will continually, the divide and conquer tactics will be employed on us as we are growing as an economy. And that is if we don't strengthen ourselves politically by forming a union government first. Number two, we need to form strategic relationships with the rest of the world, because what is happening to China right now and happening to Russia will happen to us once we start becoming strong as Africans. So these are some of the things that I see that this visit, Nancy Pelosi's provocation of China and visiting Taiwan, these are the things I see as implications for Africans, and this is what it means for us as Africans. This is what we can learn from this kind of provocation as Africans, and we need to continue to be out there to defend African interests. To be honest, we need to defend African interests as Africans, and we need to continually debunk the lies that are being spread by these neo-colonialists, these colonialist exploiters. And they say that they are coming for human rights, but they are coming for exploitation of our resources. And they are not really coming for human rights. Instead, they are violating human rights all over the earth. As we saw in Libya, we saw the destruction of Somalia, the destruction of Iraq and its dismemberment. We saw the destruction of Afghanistan. So this is not human rights. This is not democracy. This is exploitation and destruction. So this is what these guys are spreading, and we should be aware of this. Like what Nkrumah said, that the best way for us to defeat neo-colonialism and imperialism is to expose it. You expose it. So that is what he said, that we need to be aware. We need to speak out. We need to give out this information to the majority of the people, so that the people can be aware of the tactics, of the methods of imperialism. If you look at, if you go and read the mechanism of neo-colonialism, the book is called Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, but just read one chapter, the mechanism of neo-colonialism. That book lays out the strategy of neo-colonialism, even though it was published in 1965. But it is very relevant up to date, that whatever Nkrumah wrote in there is talking about Hollywood, he's talking about religion, how it is being used, he's talking about the news, how it is being used, magazines and all that. Now the internet is the new magazine. Okay, so they are pushing all this propaganda out there through their media networks, like what I told you. They banned RT from DSTV. So these are the neo-colonial methods which Nkrumah was talking about. So we need to update ourselves constantly as Africans, and we need to be aware that the challenges China is facing right now as a rising power, the same challenges which Africa will face as a rising power against this neo-colonialism, as these neo-colonialists. As long as these neo-colonialists are still around and they are not defeated. My name is Kwame Gonza, and the channel is called Africa Reimagined, and I want to ask you to invite others so that we can have these dialogues. And if you are out there and you are strong on the understanding of our African continent and Pan-Africanism and the history of our continent and our people all across the world, okay, Okay, when I talk about the people, the African people all across the world, I mean, all the other people, even in the United States, those are African people. They're not African Americans. They're not people, black people or descendants of slaves. No, no, no. I don't believe that. They're not African descendants of slaves, whatever, fundamentally black Africans and stuff like that. They're not that. These are African people. These are African people. And like Kwame Nkrumah said, all people of African descent, whether they live in the north, south, or whatever, Caribbean, any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. So that is the spirit from which I speak. So if you are an African in the United States or anywhere, and you want to have these discussions for us to build this media outlet which informs Africans about the issues in our community all across the continent. We have a weekly program on Sundays, which happens at 12 GMT, 12 PM GMT on Sunday. We update news weekly. We call it a weekly roundup, of the news, weekly roundup, African news, weekly roundup, of what happened within the Pan-African world, within the African world, on the continent, in the north, south, and west, and all over in the central, and then within the African diaspora world also. So we discuss these within 1.5 hours. And so we want to invite you, if you are out there and you are interested in being on the panel, you can reach out to me. I will leave in the comment section my email. You can reach out to me even in the chat. You can just send me an email, and then I'll reach out to you, and then we can have these discussions going forward as we build a new nation for our people, as we strengthen Africa, as we do what Kwame Nkrumah said, what Chairman Omali Yashitela is saying, that we have to unify Africa and rescue it from the exploitation that has been going on for the last 600 years by these foreigners, these white foreigners that are masquerading as, as sheep, yet inside their worlds, they are putting on outside, a sheep skin, but when you cut it and see inside, they are very, very dangerous. They are talking about democracy, but they are very, very dangerous. When you look at the trail, the trail of destruction that follows them, wherever they come from, Iraq, Afghanistan, see what they are doing to Ukraine. They are pouring weapons inside there so that people can continue to fight, Somalia, Libya. So the trail of the destruction which is coming from where they are, from their back, is just, unbelievable. So this makes them wolves who are coming with the faces talking about democracy and human rights, but they are killing millions in their back, wherever they, live. So that is what we wanted to discuss today. We wanted to discuss the implications of these provocations, Nancy Pelosi provocations in China. We condemn them. And as Africans, we need to come together and condemn these and speak out against them. Our leaders, it is time for us to pressure our leaders, people like Museveni, Ramaphosa. All of you guys need to stop keeping quiet. Nanado, all of you guys, we know that some of you are weak and cowards and stuff like that. But, Uhuru Kenyatta and all the presidents, or Raila Odinga, or William Ruto, who is coming to power, you guys need to come together and speak with one voice. The African Union should be empowered to speak with one voice. I heard President Museveni complaining about the African Union, but President Museveni, the African Union cannot work if you don't give it power. Okay, you said that when you go to the African Union, you look at the people there, they are not serious. People, they cannot be serious if you are not serious. So a few of you have to be serious, then the others will also be serious. So what am I saying? I'm saying that this is a learning lesson for us, and the world is facing an existential crisis that the provocation of China would spark a nuclear war. They are provoking these Western people, these colonialists, these white people colonialists, these white colonialists are provoking two countries which have nuclear weapons. And Africa is just in the middle. Okay, Africa is not very far, because some of these nuclear weapons, once they are fired and they are being fired from China, they are passing, Africa to fall into, to go to the United States. The Americans could intercept these weapons and as they are passing over Africa, they could fall in Africa, and we could, face the consequences of these problems. So we need to be strategic and look at these problems strategically. So we have to learn, like I said, that these things which are happening to China, they could happen to us. But at the same time, our African leaders and the African Union needs to speak out and say, United States, stop provoking. Okay, we need to reach out and tell them that they need to stop provoking. Europe and the United States, they need to accept the changing status of the world which they have ushered in themselves. They created this themselves. They created the advances in technology. The advances in technology, they lead to new knowledge for the people. They need to awareness, to self-awareness by the people. So the people are much more aware of what is going on in the world. So that means you cannot lie to them. Like in slavery times or colonial times, you cannot have meetings in the dark, and then you come and people, they don't know what you're talking about. You cannot do the same things you did in 1885 to divide Africa, and then you come back later. You see, so the people are aware. So we as a people need to be strong out there and speak out candidly. And not only that, when our leaders assemble at the African Union, all of you stand together and give a statement, a strong warning statement, that this is not going to be allowed. This is the statement of the African heads of state. This is what we as African citizens want to hear from our heads of state as African, leaders. Unless you have turned out to be misleaders, but we want to hear that the United States should be warned that the provocations of superpower countries like Russia and China, who have nuclear weapons, is not allowed. It has great consequences for the rest of the world, the destruction of the world. And we have to be firm in this conviction, because like I said, if China fires a nuclear weapon and that nuclear weapon is passing over Africa, because we don't have satellites, we don't have those security infrastructures, we cannot stop China from firing a nuclear weapon, for that nuclear weapon to pass across Africa. And in the process, if the United States sees that nuclear weapon passing across Africa, it will intercept that weapon. And when it intercepts that weapon, it shoots it down and it will fall over Africa. And who will suffer the consequences of that nuclear war? Africa will suffer the consequences of that war. So this is not what we want. So that is why our African leaders have to be circumspect. They have to be alert to these realities, and they have to speak out. You African leaders, Museveni, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, Raila Odinga, whoever is the president in Kenya, Ahmed Abiy in Ethiopia, all of you, Ramaphosa, South Africa, you have to pick Nanado, whoever is willing, President Tshisekedi of the Congo, and we have to make efforts at unifying the continent politically and stop being cowards. We have to stop, the hypocrisy. We have to stop the procrastination, because our life and race as a people depends on this decision of unifying Africa, politically. If we do not unify Africa politically, we are putting the existence of our race as a people at risk. These Europeans, they are capable of unimaginable crimes. You have seen that even the church participated in the murder, in genociding, the indigenous, the Catholic Church participated in the genocide of indigenous children in Canada. You can see that they annihilated the indigenous population in the United States. So the Europeans, what they are capable of is unimaginable. They annihilated and killed all over. They genocided the people in Australia and New Zealand, and England took over these places. And they killed all the people. So this thing, the fact that we survived it, and we still have monuments of Europeans in the south who are still holding onto our land in the South African part of the country, the continent in Azania. It shows you that they are still here. These people are still dangerous, and they can still cause harm to us as a people, and they can still genocide us as a people, as Africans. So let us not buy into these allegations of human rights, which they are saying when they have caused genocide and killed people of continents and countries. Millions. In Congo alone, 20 million people were killed. Namibia, more than 10 million people were killed by Germany, and these are not spoken about. So I think our African leaders, you have to be alert. You have to speak up for your people if you want your next generations, yourself, your next generations, which we will leave behind, to survive. My name is Kwame Gonza, and this has been my analysis on the Nancy Pelosi provocational visit by the United States, provocations, provocative visit to Taiwan, which is a territory of China, and they know very well that they are supposed to seek permission. They are not supposed to have relationships with Taiwan without the knowledge of China. Everything is supposed to go within the context of international law, because the United Nations recognizes Taiwan as a part of China. So they are supposed to go through China if they want to visit Taiwan, and it is breaking international law, whatever they have been doing. And our African leaders need to learn from it. Like I said, we could face the same problems, and we need to speak out as Africans. If the leaders don't speak out, the African intellectuals like us, we have to speak out. Africans, we have to speak out and say the United States, what it is doing is wrong. It should not pour weapons in Ukraine. It should not provoke, superpower countries, which could anger people, and they could use nuclear weapons. And we as Africans need to understand that we have to unify politically for us to be able to counter this danger that will come to us, because it is coming to China as a rising power. Also, as we are rising, we could face the same problems as Africans also. So I want to thank you all who have taken the time to watch this program. I love you very much, and Africa must unite. Like I said, we have petitions going around. I'll post them down. Those petitions have been endorsed by PLO Lumumba Foundation, and PLO Lumumba himself has signed them. We are demanding for a united African state, number one. Number two, we are demanding for a single passport, a single currency on the African continent. We are demanding for a single military on the African continent. We are looking for 1 million signatures. Petitions, like I said, have been endorsed and signed by PLO Lumumba Foundation. So you too need to sign these petitions. The petitions have been signed also by Dr. Edmund Folfak, who is a renowned oncologist and doctor of cancer at Ohio State University Medical Center, Pan-African Daily TV. Dr. Susan, she has signed them also, and she has endorsed. Susan has done that. And then Sister Shanice, also the Sister Shanice show, she has gracefully done that also, and she has endorsed these. So I want to thank you. The channel is called Africa Reimagined, and I'll see you next time as we come again. Invite others, and let's have these discussions as we go on. And we are saying Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Thank you.